Well, hello, everyone. I'm Michael Kerman with Leading Edge Seminars, and I'm very, very happy, kind of excited to welcome you to this hour session with Sabrina N'Diaye. Um, Also, you'll see in the screen Emily Porter, who is kind of she's the official host of all this, and she'll be there for you to send in questions or check on the chat line, or let Emily know if you'd like to participate in the conversation with questions or comments after about a half hour or so of this conversation. So you should know that also everything we enable closed caption. So if you'd like to see the words as well as hear them, you're welcome to go to the closed caption function on the Zoom screen. I guess everyone knows how that works right now. So this is how this is going to work today. Will be several different parts. I'm going to introduce Sabrina in a sec, and then we'll have a chance to talk together. And then I have some questions about her life, her career, her new book, and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll open it up for questions from our audience, you. So that's what we're going to do today. So let me first give a little bit of an introduction because I know many of you who'll be watching this know Sabrina, and other of you might not and say, oh, this looks like an interesting person. And you'll find out that she is. So Sabrina N'Diaye is an integrative psychotherapist. She's a storyteller. She's a peace builder with over 3 decades of service to the underserved. She received a PhD in mind-body medicine from Saybrook University, where she studied the use of complementary and alternative interventions for physical, emotional, and spiritual growth. Her approach to healing is a blend of wisdom, which you're going to, get that just today, science and ancient spiritual practice. Now, currently, or for a long time, she's been in Baltimore, and she's the founder of Hartness Center for Peace and Healing, and there she serves women's couples, other healers, and supports a lot of people in her work. So, Sabrina, welcome. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, those of you that are here in person and those of you that will be listening later.
Great. So, I'll tell you how I like to start off, Sabrina. We didn't talk about this at all, but I always am curious how people got into this interesting work. I know your first job was a social worker in New York, but what about growing up in your family kind of primed you for getting into this work of being a healer and a social worker and a psychotherapist, all that stuff?
That's a really good question. And it is one of the questions that I invite other therapists that I work with to also answer. But for me, I am very clear that this is the work that I was born to do. And I am clear that every suffering, every trauma in my experience and the experience of my mother and my mother's mother and my father and my father's father have also led to me being able to do what I do right now. I was born in New York City and to an amazing woman who suffered a ton of losses before she was 15 years old, my mom. When my mother was 15, her mother had a massive stroke, and we'll talk more about how that evolved. But my grandmother had a massive stroke. She was attacked by two police officers in New York City and lost all functioning. Um, and my mom and her siblings ended up in foster care. And so that in and of itself, I believe, led to me growing up, becoming an adult, and working with children in foster care. But before that, my family's suffering also helped to shape me in the way that I see people, in the way that I serve people, in my capacity to listen to people, to see beyond what's in front of me when I'm engaging with people. And those are all things that I was taught either directly or indirectly before I even went to school. So I tell people, like, you have some original power that is inside of you that lends itself to your capacity to be a healing professional. And those are not things that you can ever learn in school. So, in a nutshell, I've been a therapist since I was 3, Michael. 3 years old
And
is when I started.
yeah, and you got your PhD in, the mind body kind of integrative, which was it's become now, people say, oh yeah, but I know all about mind body. I'm a believer in it. I do this. But when you did it, it wasn't quite that way. So how did you, I'm wondering how you evolved to decide that's what I want to get a PhD in as opposed to something else.
Well, what's crazy, Michael, when I was in social work school, I was still in my 20s. And I told my professor that I wanted to do my master's thesis on love. And everyone was like, "What are you kidding me? You can't talk about love in this profession." And I was like, "Yeah, but I love the people that I work with and I love this work. And aren't we talking about love all the time? And we're giving it different words: unconditional positive regard, empathy, support, transference, countertransference. It's all love." And so I did my paper on love being like the core premise behind the work that we do. And that's sort of, even though I got some resistance, that's been my guiding force throughout my 30 plus years working as a helping professional. And I don't know when it started, but somehow in the middle of my journey, well, in the beginning, actually, the beginning of my journey, I started breathing with my clients.
Mm.
I started moving with my clients. I started taking them on walks instead of sitting in the office with them. I studied a few different healers who talked about the healing power of touching clients non-sexually with nothing but purity of heart and what it meant to actually be touched by another human being in a healthy non-sexual way. And I mean on the shoulder, on the top of the head, pulling out your chair for a client, making the room smell good. Those are all ways. Like it's really like a thought, the energy around a person coming to see us and feeling in their body, this person really cares about me is what was the basis for me in integrative therapy, integrative psychotherapy. And so I was already leaning towards that. And I had looked at a bunch of different possibilities for me when I decided I wanted to go back to school. And I had decided I'm not going to go get a doctorate in something that I don't believe in. And at the same time, my mentor at the time, Dr. Jim Gordon, who founded the Center for Mind Body Medicine, he was a part of this launch of this doctorate in mind body medicine. And I asked him about it and I said, "All right, let's do it." And I realized that the things that we were learning, I was already implementing in my work. But I got the validation through science that I was on the right path. And yes, I'm excited that it's now as common as you and I having this conversation. Like they're happening everywhere.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see the growth of the acceptance of the word love. And I did something I've talked to Lisa Ferrance, who, you're close to, who has her institute not too far from you. And I think when you said positive, unconditional positive regard, Carl Rogers was beloved as, oh, he's so wise, he's so helpful. He just couldn't use the word love in the 50s and the 40s.
Yeah.
But that's what he was talking about. And I wonder, you also teach about supervision and working with clinicians. How do you integrate your ideas about love into your work with them and and help them be supervisors, understanding how important that is?
Oh, well, let me just tell you the truth. Anybody that comes
Okay.
to see me, if you're coming to see me for something, you know we're going to talk about love.
Yeah.
So if you're unprepared for that, then you probably won't come to me for supervision. Like that's just I'm fine with that. So people that are coming to me either as their therapist or as their supervisor, they know we're going to dig into some love. And so I used Scott Peck's definition of love as my guide. One of the things that he says in The Road Less Travel is that psychotherapy is an act of love. And I was like, yes. And then he said that love, he defined love as the commitment to the spiritual growth of another human being or oneself. And like that's exactly what we're doing with our clients. And we are holding them in one leg of their journey to knowing themselves. And that is a spiritual journey to know yourself, like really know yourself. And that's a lifetime goal. So when people come to me for supervision, it's twofold. One, you're going to fall back in love with yourself. You're going to fall back in love with this work, and you're going to fall back in love with your purpose, and you're going to honor the reality of the type of clients that you love. And when you know yourself and you love this work, then you have the safety to discuss when it's challenging. And that's like
Mm,
any relationship, right? I love my kids, and sometimes they get on my nerves. I mean, there's just no way around it, right? I love my husband, and most days he gets on my nerves.
mm,
And how do we hold both, right? How do we hold both? And I think when we have permission to express a range of emotion in the safety of supervision around the people that we're serving, then we can serve them more completely.
mm,
But when I'm mentoring someone, the first thing I want them to do is really, really fall in love with themselves and their capacity.
mm.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Tell me how love fits in. Not everyone might know the definition of integrative psychotherapy. So what does that mean to you? How does love fit
Yeah.
into it? But more broadly, how has that changed the psychotherapy field, do you feel?
Yeah. So for me, I'm always making a triangle with people, and I say, this is psychotherapy. Integrative psychotherapy is about the mind, the body, and the spirit. And so when we get all three of these into balance, then you can experience the real healing that you're seeking. Now, when I use the word spirit, sometimes people are like, "Oh no, is she trying to make me change my religion?" Absolutely not. Is she trying to get me to have a religion? No. But we all have a religion. We all have something that we are attached to that we're worshiping. So if you're attached to drugs and alcohol, maybe that's your religion. And maybe the goal is for us to change some of that so that you can be attached to something that brings meaning and purpose to your life. So when we're out of whack spiritually, our physical body is also impacted. When we're out of balance mentally, our spiritual body is also impacted. So for me, integrative psychotherapy is the delicate balance. It's like an equilateral triangle, and to not have one without the other.
Mm,
Now, it is, I don't think it's revolutionary. I think it's a return. I think we lost something along the way because before we paid people for advice and support, we went to people that we loved
mm,
for support. Like we went to an elder, we went to the grandmothers, we went to someone that we respected, someone that was going to give us what we needed in a loving way. So for us now, for me, it's returning to that. How do you return to that? And then once we as healers really love ourselves more deeply, then we can help people return to their nature. Because our nature is to be in nature. And that could be a spiritual practice for you. If your nature is to sit outside and be with trees and you've stopped, maybe the work is for you to return to the tree. And maybe the work is for me as your therapist to sit outside with you, or for us to have an imagery exercise in which you go to that tree with me, take me with you, and then go back into the outside world and be with that tree by yourself. So that's just an example of how I hold people as an integrative therapist.
and yeah, so spirituality is a very important part of this triangle. And I
Hmm.
read that you became a student, and excuse me if I'm not pronouncing his name, Sidi Muhammad Al-Jamal, who was a
Hmm.
healer and peacemaker. How did you find him, and how did you get attracted to Sufi ideas, and what has that meant in your life, both as a person and a therapist?
Ooh, so My meeting Sidi Muhammad. And Sidi is just sort of a term of endearment with like a father figure or someone that you respect greatly. It's an Arabic word. But I'm still trying to figure out how I met this guy, if you want to know the truth. Like, how in the world did this black girl from the Bronx fall in love with a chubby Palestinian? Like, what is the chances of that? Like, never. We barely spoke the same language, but there was a point in my life where I said, I need a teacher. I was introduced to Sufism through my husband, the man who became my husband, but first through some of his very, very dear friends, these three Senegalese guys who I just hung out with them and I was just amazed by their lifestyle. Always praying, always with their prayer beads, always telling people that they were beautiful, that they loved them, that they loved each other, and not attaching anything physical to the love. And I had never hung out with a bunch of men that had that capacity before, with all due respect. I mean, I never saw men that could behave in this manner without turning it into something sexual as I was a young woman, and that had been my experience. And so with these guys, I was like, oh gosh, the way you live. I love the way you live. I love your lifestyle of surrender. And then there was a period in my life in which I ended up marrying one of them. And then there's a period in my life where I felt really far away from them, far away from the practices, physically far away from where they lived, emotionally, just far. And so I just decided to sit in prayer and meditation. And I think it's a Buddhist saying that says something to the effect of, when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. And so I sat with that in my prayers. I'm ready. I don't know when my teacher is coming, but I'm going to get ready for my teacher. And so I returned to the practices in preparation for whoever this person was going to be. And he literally landed to me an email. This cardiologist in Detroit was a student of his. Then I started getting all these random emails from people that were his students. And then I found out that he had a little meditation chanting circle right near my house. And so I went. And that's how I met him. And I actually didn't physically meet him right away, but he lived in Jerusalem, and his commitment his entire life, he was born in a war zone, died in a war zone. His entire life had been committed to bringing Jews and Christians and Muslims together in a war zone in Jerusalem. And so he had all these students, and he told them, don't change your religion. If you're a Muslim, stay a Muslim, but learn your religion. If you're a Jew, stay a Jew, but learn your religion. And if you're a Christian, stay a Christian. Learn your religion, because when you learn your religion, you're going to learn that love is the root of your religion. And if you can do that, then you will change the way you live. And that's what he kept teaching us. And so I called him one day. I thought I was going to get his secretary. I got him. And I had to make a promise to him. I didn't know. I was like, oh my God, what is the promise? I'm thinking, some sort of cult thing happening. And he said, your promise is this. And repeat after me. Like, I will be wise. I will be kind. I will be loving. I will be fair. I will be forgiving. I will be merciful. It's like, oh, I can do that. And that's how I ended up his student.
Well, I'm curious what it was like in Jerusalem because I had a very similar experience with the therapist who changed my life, and still I hold
Mm.
dear, Milton Erickson, who was a
Mhm.
very creative, wild guy. And I heard you could go see him. Um, and I phoned, and he answered the phone, and he said, "Yeah, yeah, come to Phoenix. I'm free that for a few days." And it was a small group of people in a room, and it really changed my life. What was it like in Jerusalem? Who was there, and what were you going through there?
Oh my gosh. So that initially I just called CD in Jerusalem, and because I was told that he had office hours. And so I
Mhm.
thought I was going to get a secretary and she was going to connect me to him. 4 o'clock in the morning. I call 4 o'clock my time. So it's like,
Yeah.
9 a.m. in Jerusalem, 9 or 10 in the morning. And he said, "Oh, I've been waiting for you. You're not stopping." And so we had this conversation. We had this conversation, and at the end of the conversation, um, he said, "Yeah, from now on, I'm calling you Sarah." And I was like, "Sarah? I don't know if I want that name." I'm in my mind, that's kind of a commoner name. And he said, "Ah, she's the mother of us all." And it's true, like Sarah in Jewish tradition was the wife of Abraham, and in Islam is also the wife of Ibrahim. And he said, "She's the mother of us all," and hung up the phone. I was like, "Oh, geez, okay." So I didn't go to Jerusalem that particular time, but I have been to Jerusalem since becoming his student. And for me, Jerusalem is magic. It's a magical place. And I remember when I first went, um, I had to go through all these tests, and I was tested by the police and tested by a soldier, and this question, that question. I was getting really frustrated because I'm just this American girl and I'm just trying to see something. I'm trying to see the Dome of the Rock. And lots of people have stories like this. Like they're in this place and they're thinking they have no idea what's going to happen. And what ended up happening to me in Jerusalem was I got to the dome. There's a bunch of stuff that happened before, but I finally get to the dome. I'm praying next to these Arabic speaking women. No one speaks English. No one's African American. Here I am by myself, and everyone finally starts to leave. I'm hot. I'm a little aggravated. I'm just a little tired. And I look up at the dome and I say to myself, but I'm just looking at the dome. I said, "Who are you?" And I just in my body, I felt Jerusalem was a woman. And because I do a lot of imagery, and I looked at her and I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I am everybody's mother, and I have enough for everybody. And as soon as they stop fighting, they're going to know that they can all drink here." And I said, "What?" I just felt it was so true in my body, like the absolute truth. And I have since talked to other people who have shown up in Jerusalem with these open hearts and they've had similar experiences. They're like, "Oh, yeah, honey, that happens all the time." And when I finished having this conversation, I was like, "Okay, okay, mama, I'm going to do what you say, mama." And then my CD son, who I had not spoken to, I told him I was coming. I never heard from him again. He called me. He's like, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm sitting here at the dome. I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm going." And he goes, "Oh, just stay there. I'll be there in 15 minutes. You're coming home." And I just had the most amazing time of my life. And now we're in this next iteration of the war, and I miss that place. And my prayer is that at some point someone realizes that she is everybody's mother. That is my prayer. And that's the like core of the work that I do,
Hmm.
that we embrace her as our collective mother.
Well, now, speaking of love and mothers, maybe it's a good time to shift to Big Mama Speaks because the book is called Big Mama Speaks: Love Lessons from a Harlem River Swan, and it's been out for a while, and I read it and it kind of blew me away. So
Oh,
tell me,
thank you.
it just means a lot, and I think it's so relevant to all of us as human beings, and especially the people who are involved with us, who are therapists who work with other human beings. So tell us about your grandmother and this
Mm,
book.
yeah. So the book, um, it's so interesting because even though it was published last year, it still feels like it just happened, and sometimes it feels like, did that happen? So in a nutshell, the book is based on my lessons that I learned from my maternal grandmother. And I think I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation when my mother was 15, my grandmother was assaulted by two police officers. I had two uncles who were addicted to drugs, illegal drugs, and they committed a lot of petty crimes. So the police came to my grandmother's house, to her apartment. She had six children. She was single. And they said, "Where's your brother?" And she said, "I didn't know." And there was this back and forth, classic good cop, bad cop game that was played with my grandmother. And one of them put a gun to her head and wanted her to tell the truth. And she insisted that she didn't know where they were. They finally left. And that evening, she had a stroke. So at 33, she lost all of her functioning to speak, to care for herself, and to care for her kids. So in the book, I call that her first death. So by the end of, let me see if I mean, I wasn't there. My mom was a young person, but within days they told my mom and my aunts and the aunt that eventually cared for my mom to prepare for her death. And they performed last rites. Priest came in, and my grandmother, she was just a holy lady. She woke up on Good Friday. Crazy, right? Crazy. She woke up on Good Friday and she lived for another 54 years. Another 54 years we had of this woman. And I call that her first death. And her second death happened in 2011. But her second life, she was a whole new creation. She couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, so she had this whole conversation with you with her eyes. And you asked earlier, Michael, what also led to me becoming a healing professional. It was also her, like sitting with her, respecting that sometimes she was incontinent and sitting with it anyway, and really witnessing this incredible human being, because even though she had the stroke and she could no longer access words, she had the most infectious laugh, sort of like when you see a 7-month-old laugh and you don't know what the heck is so funny, but you're laughing, you're laughing with this baby. She was like that. She was like, I call her the Black Lady Bodhisattva. Like she just had everyone in stitches, just hysterical laughing. And I was blessed with the opportunity to care for her the last 6 years of her life. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of different things happening in my family. I said, bring her to me. And I wanted my kids to experience really knowing her and knowing what it is to care for an elder. And they learned that. And so I had her until she died. And those 6 years were just hard and beautiful at the same time. And so after she died, I started to journal a lot. It was how I moved my grief. So I would journal, and first I was just writing like, this sucks, da da da. Why was your life so horrible? Why? And then one day I felt my pen just like move, and she started answering these questions. And the first thing she said to me was, "What makes you think my life was so hard? Didn't you always see me laugh?" And I was like, damn, she got me. And so she kept getting me. I would say things like, my husband is this and my kids are this. And she had an answer for everything. And so this journal was kind of fat. And I started to realize, oh, these are real lessons. These are real life lessons. So I took all of the lessons and I synthesized them into 9. I did a qualitative analysis of the lessons. Yeah, that PhD is worth something. I'll pay for it in my last breath. But yes, so I realized that there were like key lessons that this woman was teaching me from the other side. And the first thing that she taught me that was so moving for me was I found out that the police came to the hospital asking for forgiveness. They knew her because this was a neighborhood. not like it is now. Like the police knew everybody. They knew what they were doing when they did what they did, and they thought they were just going to pull the truth out of her. So my aunt was there guarding the hospital, whatever, sitting there with her sister, and she accepted their apology. So that's my first lesson is her telling me how to forgive, why important it is to forgive. And so the book is these lessons and also the journal, like literally snippets from our conversation. And then the second part is always how I applied it into my personal life,
Mhm.
how I was able to reconnect with my husband or forgive my kids and forgive my father's father, because there's a whole story there. And then how I applied her teachings into my clinical practice. She's the best damn therapist I ever met, and she didn't say a word. She said three words and yeah, no, and uh-huh. And she had all these different intonations of her voice and her movements. And she would say no, or she would say nope, or she would say, like you knew what she meant every time. And then she would laugh if it were really a joke. So these lessons really helped me to become a better person and definitely a better therapist. So forgiveness is like one of the roots of my work, like how to help people move to a place of forgiveness. But these 9 lessons have been what have guided me and what I hope will continue to guide me. And the reason why I ended up putting it into a book was because I felt like, number one, I wrote the book for me. And I read a memoir book by Elizabeth Andrews who says something to the effect of, you be your first audience. And then the second reason why I wrote it is for my family. Because when I spoke at my grandmother's funeral, I realized that a lot of people in the family really didn't know her. Like they didn't know the jewel that we had in this family because all they saw was a crippled old lady. And some of them never sat at her feet to really like experience who she really was. And I did. And I wanted them to know, well, this is what we're made of. This is who we really are. Don't get caught in the poverty, the racism, the misogyny. All of that is real. But also, there's a beauty. And we are the descendants of this beautiful human who had an alcoholic father and a schizophrenic. My grandmother was diagnosed bipolar. She had psychotic episodes. I'm not really clear what the real diagnosis was, right? Because who
Mm.
knows what they did to her. So my grandmother had all of these things that happened in her. I'm sorry, my great grandmother was diagnosed with the psychosis. My grandmother was raised by these two people that had these real challenges and never getting married and all the stuff. And I kept telling my family, don't get stuck on the outer. Really attach yourself to what was in this woman's incredible heart. And so the second reason I wrote the book was for my family and my children so they could not get stuck in whatever was happening in their lives. And then thirdly, I wrote it for whoever else needed to hear and understand and experience. And that's part of the reason why I self-published, because every time I talked to a publisher, they were like, wow, you're right. Well, but we're going to change. No, you can't change this. I'm sorry. Maybe the next book, but this one, no, we can't change it. She spent her entire life with people speaking for her. She's gonna speak. And that's how I ended up with the title, Big Mama Speaks. Yeah. So the lessons are timeless.
How do you, when you look at her life, what gave her that strength and brilliance and insight in her life to become the way she was, even
Mm.
before the stroke and then after the stroke? What do you think?
Well,
What can
when
we
she
learn
told,
from that?
yeah, no, I asked her one day, how? When she was physically alive with me, I said, I called her grandma. We called her Big Mama after my children were born because I felt like she needed a higher name. And so I gave her a list and she chose Big Mama and we laughed about it. But I remember one day I said to her, why are you so happy? How in the world are you so happy? And she went, like, what am I gonna do? I'm good. And then when I spoke to her through my imagery and through my journaling, she said, what do you think I was born an angel? No. I've had all the feelings. And then she said, but I made a choice after my first death. I made a choice to be at peace. So the stroke actually elevated her to a higher way of being. And I can remember I read her name, Stroke of Insight, Jill, I can't remember her last
Oh, I
name.
know you. Both the
Jill Bolt Taylor, right?
Taylor. Yeah.
I read her book, A Stroke of Insight, and I heard her do a TED talk, and she talks about her stroke and having this amazing spiritual experience in the midst of the stroke. Like I saw beauty, I saw love, I saw light. And she was a neuroscientist, right? And now all of a
Yeah.
sudden she's having the experience that she's been guiding her patients with or guiding her research with. And my grandmother had the same thing. Like she died in whatever rudimentary table that was in 1960, and she came back somebody else. And she just really like lived that serenity prayer. Like, this is the life I have, and I'm gonna live it. And she made a conscious decision to bring joy everywhere yeah, that's her stroke of insight. She made a conscious decision to bring joy. And that's what she left me with. Yes, this is crap. But also, what are you going to make from it? What are
Yeah.
you going to do with it? How are you going to make this something meaningful for you? And so I wrote the book for me
Mhm.
so that when life comes at me hard, which it did, which it does. Even in the midst of publishing this book, my grandmother's youngest daughter, who was my mom's baby sister and my best friend,
Mhm.
she died in the middle of this whole, right before I was putting it to print. And it was another moment of gratitude for me because I self-published. I was able to go back in and change one or two words in the acknowledgement. But I said, I have to acknowledge what my aunt did for me in a different way now that she's over there with my grandmother. And my mom had three sisters, and they've all passed away. So I had to change the way I dedicated them in the book. And when I did my book celebration, I got a photograph of the three of them and I placed them next to their mother. So now I got this whole team over here. There's these incredible women to give me guidance and support. And I have to open my own book and decide what I'm going to do with this life. So, yeah, I
Oh,
love her. Mhm.
pardon?
No, I love her story.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that these stories resonate with them.
Yeah. Maybe we could go through lesson by lesson, and I mean, there's so much there which we're not going to have time to do today. But I
That's okay.
wonder, in terms of what therapists can most learn from these lessons, do you think?
Mm. I think what therapists can most learn is well, there's a couple things. One is that hope is some powerful medicine, that laughter is powerful medicine, that the people that came before us have something to teach us, that we don't have to run from the things that we don't understand, that we can guide our clients in holding a multiplicity of emotions, that it's okay if they come to us sometimes and they're super happy, and then sometimes in the depth of sorrow. I think therapists can learn that they don't have to talk so much or work so hard, that sometimes we can just hold people in the beauty and the sacredness of silence. And my grandmother was silent a lot. And that we can hold people there. Um, I also think that my experiences in meditating and in using imagery and journaling also teach therapists that there's some science in that, and to use it. And these are tools that don't cost our clients any money. I mean, it doesn't cost us much to have journals. I always have a journal. I always have a pack of journals. Every time someone comes to see me, if they don't have one, I give them one. And I say, like, write whatever nugget you hear me say from my lips, or nugget that gets stirred up in you, write it down, because you're not going to be with me forever.
Mm,
Like, you're going to go, you're going to fly up out of here. So I want therapists to understand that the imagination is powerful and it's real. And then I want therapists to like use some of these teachings
mhm,
for themselves. How do we guide our clients in understanding that forgiveness is for their own physiological health? How do we get clients to understand that they have to say no? It was really, really interesting to me that that's the only word that my grandmother could speak with clarity was no.
mm,
And she could never say no before her first death. So literally, we're guiding our clients, to let go of attachments to the things that we can't change. And, I'm always teaching my clients to love themselves. Like I may not say it in those exact words, but what I often say is, you're in therapy because you experienced a misunderstanding about love.
mm,
Your parents may have not done it right. You've been screwing it up, whatever. You had some heartache. That's what leads you to seeking therapy. Because if you only wanted medication, well, you didn't come see us, right? You can just go to a psychiatrist and get a pill. You came to therapy because you want to unravel these misunderstandings and come back to love. And then the lessons that I want therapists to understand is that if you sit and listen, then you'll find out why you're here. Why are you here? So what she taught me, and I wrote about it in the book, is one of the most beautiful experiences I've had in my career was working in a prison. I'd have never thought in a million years I would work in a prison. And I'm actually planning and plotting to go back to work in a
mm,
prison.
mm,
Because I walked in those prison doors and I saw a million women that had elements of my story, elements of the women that came before me, their stories. So we can literally find out what we're supposed to be doing in between, the bookends of our breath, the first one and the last one. What are we supposed to be doing? So I want therapists to shift to um, really guiding clients into knowing what they're here for. What are you here for? And if your sole purpose in life is to be a cab driver, then how can I support you in being the best damn cab driver to ever hit the road? Right? And how will anybody know that you love what you're doing and you love why you're here? It's going to smell good. It's going to be clean. It's going to be polished. And you're going to emanate something that is so beautiful. That's what I want people to understand. And we all have something beautiful inside of us. And I 100% believe that. And I do believe that some people will leave this earth and never know. That's unfortunate. But those people don't come to me for therapy. Or if they do, they leave very quickly. The ones that come to me for therapy, they want to do that. They're like, I want to feel that.
mm,
I want a little dot of that in my life. So that's what I want there. And I want therapists to really embrace the beauty of their work to see it as medicinal, as important as any other kind of healthcare. That I tell people, I help you heal your heart, but I'm not a cardiologist. I ain't cutting you open, baby, but I'm gonna cut you open. You're gonna be wide open and you're gonna cry here and you're gonna get angry here. All that's gonna happen here. And I want therapists to dive more deeply into their own humanity. We are not like this. We are like this. I don't know who decided that we should be like this, but we're in it.
Yeah. Wow. Um, I'm sure your clients feel your passion and it helps bring out theirs. I want to, we have a very small group, but if anyone would like
Yeah.
to make a comment or just join in, you could either wave like that, the old-fashioned way, and Emily will unmute you. You could put a question or the comment in the chat line, whatever works for you. But I'd be curious if anyone has any feedback, any thoughts, any questions. Well, maybe I'll ask one while you're thinking of things, okay? If people
Yeah, I
want to,
see some
well, no,
thinking.
just wait. Let some thinking go on before we go on. Anybody right now? Oh, there's a hand. Natalie. Emily, can you unmute
Can you
Natalie, please?
unmute it?
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
it just unmuted me. Um, are you Natalie or am I, or is it?
You're Natalie.
No, I know, but somebody else came on screen. I thought maybe it was another Natalie. Okay.
Oh, you know.
My question, I love what you talked about. It just inspired me. I've sort of lost a bit of perspective on the work that I do. I am a therapist. Um, so I really appreciate today. It really hit home with me. A few times I felt like crying. And
Mhm.
I just wanted to know where you work. Do you work in Toronto or are you somewhere else?
Yeah, I'm not in Toronto. To Toronto. We're working on that. But I live in Baltimore.
That's what I thought. I thought it was you might be in the US. So I was just wondering.
I am in the US, but I get around.
You get around? Okay.
Yeah, I get around. But right now I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to do some work if you ever do anything in this area.
Yeah, I'll let Michael and Emily let you know, but we are definitely talking about me traveling to Toronto.
Good.
Thank you.
Hi,
Ida
Jane.
Jane, nice to see you again.
Well, thank you. It's lovely to see you. And hello, Sabrina. I was
Hi, Ida Jane.
excited to see your name pop up in as an option just to hear you speak again. It was more than 4 years ago, myself and the three colleagues who are the clinical team at the John Howard Society in Ottawa, we did your healing leadership through the Ferens Institute
You did.
back in July 2020.
Yes, you did.
And and we'll be with you. Maybe there were three of us at that point, I think, yes. And we'll be with you at the end of this month.
Oh, you're gonna do the 3 hours, the part two.
Aha!
All right.
Just looking
Hey.
at the experiences of clinical supervision, and so just a chance to hear more from you and your perspective. I'm just so grateful.
Mhm.
Thank you for all that
Thank
you share.
you. Thank you, Ida Jane. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Just for how it challenges me in not just in the work, but
Mhm.
just in my life. And then can't do this without being emotional.
Well, you know what? Tears are tears, and there's a bunch of emotions underneath tears.
Yeah, and
Fine.
just because of what you speak to and how it lands, where it connects with me, not just in the heart, but truly, I think in the soul that is part of my experience of the work. And I've been in the work for more than 35 years now. And although I no longer work directly with our service seekers, the years of working to support our service providers, through clinical support and supervision in their work. And so even as you speak of what you bring to your work as a therapist, I found from the first time that I got to hear you just how easily that just shifts to whoever we're working with, and
Yeah.
needs and joys and challenges and sometimes the heartbreak of it all.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Did not expect that was going to land this way.
Honey, we never expect it, right? We don't even know. We have no way of knowing when the heart
Yeah.
cracks open.
It does. And it happened 4.5 years ago. It may happen again at the end of this month, but anyways, I thank you for your wisdom and for your generosity of spirit that allows you to share that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ida Jane. And when you came on, I saw your face and I was like, damn, did I know her? But I don't know if I know any therapists in Canada. So I just wanted to like not say anything, but I had a feeling I knew you. I forget names. I don't forget faces. Yes. So thank you. Thanks for coming back. Yeah. Big Mama has a way of making people cry that didn't expect it anyway. She's sneaky like that. She actually enjoys it.
Well, I'm not surprised. I should say, might be a little surprised that I can't. But I'm never shocked by my emotional responses because, yeah, some days we're just full and it leaks out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I always tell people like we have the best profession ever. I don't want to be an engineer. I don't want to do any of the other things that other people are doing. I want to do what we do.
Yeah.
And because we do this and we keep growing and we keep knowing ourselves and we keep striving to become better humans. And I love that this is what we do. And no one else outside of us really understands us. And I'm fine with that too. It's not for you to understand.
We get it.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
And when I think too, when we find our own ways to share that, there are others who may get it a little bit or just enough to honor the choices that we make.
Absolutely.
Even if they don't agree with them. Speaking
Yeah.
of, other folks in our lives who may be like, you sure that's what you want to do? Yeah. I think it, and then I come to know it, and yeah, and then I confirm it repeatedly. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Ida Jane. Yes.
Hi. May I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. I just want to say hello and thank you
Hi.
for just your refreshing perspective on the field. Hi, Natalie. Natalie and I are colleagues, and we're in
Oh, sweet.
Toronto. Yeah, and so she actually I had no idea what I was showing up to today. I read the biography, and so to hear it's all about love in the therapy world as a practitioner, of course, having those conversations of like turning my heart back on and being hardened by the world and of course, today was about love and just your refreshing perspective on the fearlessness around loving your clients, loving the work that you do, hearing somebody just speak so lovingly about this and holding space for people finding themselves. Everything was just so soul nourishing. And I just really
Mm,
want to thank you for bringing that reminder and for that, just the refreshing perspective I didn't even know I needed.
yay.
Um, and in that, I'm just curious to hear if you feel comfortable sharing more about your academic journey. You mentioned you did your PhD, so did you also do your master's? And what your journey, where did you study? What did you study? I think you said you did it on love also, but
Mhm.
I haven't gone for my master's yet. It's something that's kind of like nudging me in the background and something I've been curious about. So I would just
Mm.
love to hear a little
Yeah,
bit more about the academic
yeah.
journey.
Well, I'm older than you. Is your name Gustina?
Justina.
Justina. Okay,
Yeah.
Justina. So I'm older than you. I don't know how old you are, but I know I'm older than you. So I got my master's, I got my bachelor's in psychology from UCLA, and I graduated in 1988. So that gives you a little, you can do some math there. And then then I got my master's in social work from Hunter College in New York.
Okay.
And what I loved about Hunter is I was committed to like really being in the community, working in the community. And then I took many, many years break, and I did all the different work in many different organizations and capacities, foster care, addictions, community mental health. And then I ended up going for my doctorate in mind body medicine from Saybrook
Mhm.
University. And that was it was we were ahead of our time a little bit because it was a hybrid. Like we met physically in
Mhm.
different parts of the country, and then most of the work was online. Like we were the first Zoomers.
Mhm.
People didn't even have Zoom. We were doing Zoom. And then after I finished, which I didn't plan to do, but I ended up getting my Master of Divinity and in Sufi healing because I knew my teacher was dying.
Okay.
And I was trying to like, let me just drink up as much as I can before he leaves this earth. And he left in the middle of me in that program. But I got what I needed to get. And I have since had dreams and moments in which I've written to him, and I wrote him and I was like, "You left me too early. What are you doing? What am I supposed to do? How could you die?" And he looked at me in my dream and he was like, "You know what to do. Get out of here." So so that's, I mean, my academic journey has also been a part of my spiritual growth journey,
Mhm.
so it's hard to separate them all. And I think there's some really amazing schools. Obviously, I've gone to West Coast Ivy League to,
Mhm.
obscure schools that no one knows about, and they've
Mhm.
all been my teachers. So I'm not
I
going
love
back
that.
though. If you
Yeah.
see, if someone tells you that I'm getting another one, please, someone stop me. But I'm
Yeah.
never going to stop learning though. Yeah.
I love that. I love how you, again, integrated both the spiritual journey and the academic journey. It's not separate. The path was both intertwined. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Justina and Ida Jane, and Natalie for joining in this conversation. I thank Emily for doing all that you do to make everything happen and be there. And Sabrina, it's just always such a pleasure. You are a treasure and a jewel.
Thank
And
you.
I wish you well and hope we'll arrange something for Toronto and that you'll have a wonderful day today and that life will improve for so many people everywhere in the next while. Sometimes it
Mm.
looks kind of grim, but it's great to have the spirit and the hope that you bring, and hopefully it'll be infectious for all.
Mm. Yay. Thank you. Thank you, Michael and Emily. Thank you, my new friends. And Ida Jane, I'm gonna see you in a few weeks. Yes. Thank you all. Have a glorious day.
Where can I get your book?
Oh, it's on Amazon. That's the
Thank
number one place you can buy it now. I think Emily put the Kindle edition up. Oh, there it is. But if you don't want the Kindle, get the book.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes. And I'm gonna have an audio version coming soon. I just haven't settled to record it. Yeah. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Yes.
All